Today I'm going to show a different method for floating shelves. These are pretty sturdy, pretty heavy duty, and they're solid wood, so there's some benefits to this. And there are similar methods out there, but this is just a little bit different way of doing it with its own trade-offs and benefits. So the trade-offs with this, it's simple. I basically take a bolt that I screw into a stud and then drill holes in the back and slide the whole unit on. Now, it sounds simple. There's just a lot of steps. It's probably one of the least expensive methods, and you also have to be very precise. So those are the trade-offs. It's the strategy I like to use for hanging shelves because it gives me flexibility. Also with where I put the stud, I need minimal hardware, and you know how to make it put it together fairly quickly. So you can see these are not going anywhere. You could do pull-ups on these. Coming out, the key is getting the dead center of the stud. You can see up here I found my stud, and then what I use is a little bit of a small drill bit, and not drilling in, but just kind of feeling with it, break through that drywall until I find the edge, and then I find that exact center. Because if you're off center a little bit, you don't want with this big of a bolt going into the stud, you don't want to go off to the side. You'll bust right out of the stud. So that's the key. And of course, one of the biggest, most important things is to make sure you know what's behind your wall before you just start drilling big holes into it. I have a video of construction, so I know exactly what's behind this wall. Otherwise, it's a little bit more work. So on this one, my stud finder found it here, and my drill bits found that it shifted off a little bit. So what I do then is, the stud is about 1.5 inches. So if you go here, 1.5 inches is this way, so it's a little bit, I'll just center these two, and then go 3/4 of the way in, and that is going to be my center. Then once I find the right location on the one stud, I just use this laser to mark it on the other side. So next, I need to drill a straight hole into the wall. So the way that I did it was basically use this fixture to drill a straight wall into this piece of wood, and then I use the piece of wood to drill in, at least get it started into the wall, and then finish it. So I'll show that next. All right, so next is just getting it screwed into the wall. And it starts getting tight, but just keep cranking it. The size of the bit, I just went to the size of the shank down here, not all the way out to the threads, of course, because you need the wood to grab something. So on this one, I'm going in about 3 inches into the stud. So for a 2x4, that's almost all the way through. This is a 2x6, so I could go a little deeper if needed. But that will be more than enough to hold a shelf. I only have 2. Normally I do maybe 3 of these to hold up a shelf, which is still 3 is overkill, but I only have 2 studs in this application, so that's all I'm going to use for now. All right, so now the hard part. I cut off the tops of the bolts. And then if you ever need to take these out for some reason, you can use a pair of vice grips to clamp down, or you could use a Dremel to cut some notches. Lots of different ways to actually pull this back out if you ever needed to do that. So it's pretty handy in that sense. So I know instead of using a hacksaw, why don't I use a Sawzall? Well, Sawzall is fast. It grabs these and just jerks them like crazy. So this is a little easier on the bolt, but a little harder on your elbow grease. Okay, that was a lot of work with a handsaw, but maybe it'd work with a Sawzall with a little fluid, a little oil, mineral oil, something like that to help. Next, I just file the ends, make a little bit of a chamfer so it's easier to slide the beam on the shelf. So next, I get it centered where I want it, and then I just come in with a pencil and mark underneath on either side. I stick it in there always as close as I can get it so that it's narrow, and mark it. And then I will drill pilot holes and followed by larger holes. So here's my marks, and I just mark right in the center between those two. And the same over here, and then I'll move on to the next step. All right, so I need to drill a straight hole, and I don't have one big tool to do that, so I'm starting with a pilot hole through here to drill down straight through, and I follow up, drill farther down rather, and then I come back, I'll move this to a 1/2 inch, and then go down with a 1/2 inch several times, and then I'll follow up with this tool. And this one particular piece of wood had this ridge in it, so I'm having to work with that. It was a stock piece. All right, so next I move over to 1/2 inch. Take this off, and I'll go in as far as I can with this. And then I'll come back with this other tool. See if it's off. All right, so next I need to go deeper than I did with the other bits. They won't go far enough. So this tool will take me there. It's a 1/2 inch, the same size as the bolts on the wall. And you also want to make sure that it's not going to go into the countertop or whatever work surface you're going into. You don't want to go through your workpiece. So. All right, so I got my 2 holes drilled. This one gave me a little bit of a problem. I had some leftover sawdust in one of the holes on the first try. There it is, that's all. There, nice and sturdy. And on a side note, we used poplar. It was surplus at a local lumber yard. And poplar is notorious for poor staining, blotching, stain. So what we did on this one, we simply just sanded it down and used polyurethane coating, several coats for a natural finish. And that way we avoided any blotching from a stain. And it goes well with our overall kitchen.